Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
Cnc Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, Cnc provides patient-centered care for your entire family. Cnc Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll cover all the home teams, the Saints. We'll talk about what's going on with the New Orleans Pelicans as they have a chance to get into the NBA playoffs once again. We'll look at some of the Saints' moves. We'll talk a little bit about LSU, Tulane, and of course, a little bit later on in the program, your phone calls as well. Always a great guest on the list today. Of course, we're still social distancing, so we're still just doing one guest at a time. Today, it's my colleague, my friend from Sports 1280 and CrescentCitySports.com, David Grubb, joins us on the show today. David, welcome to the show, my friend.
It's always a pleasure to be here. I'm glad to be back.
Always good to have you. Show's going fantastic. I listen every chance I get. Of course, a great lead-in for me. Tell the folks about the radio show and tell them about what you're doing at CrescentCitySports.com.
Well, Hard to Paint, 10 a.m. till noon every weekday on WLAE-TV Sports 1280. And, you know, I think my show is just, it's me. You know, and I think that's the whole thing. I think that the title for me has always been how I wanted to approach it. I wanted to be direct, and I want to be informative, and I want to be fun all at the same time. And I think we do a great job of that. We try to bring a wide spectrum of guests. Yes. And the feedback has been great, and the support has been great.
Yeah, no, and it's a good show. And I would tell everybody, get out there, either check out the podcast at iHeartRadio, sports1280.com, Dave's social media pages. Those platforms will be up throughout the show, so you can do that as well. But do yourself a favor and check out the show. Very informative, and again, what we love in talk radio, which is a strong opinion, and that's what you got to have. The world is a different place today as you and I sit here, as opposed to the last time you and I sat here, with again the protests that are happening around our country. That comes from obviously the thing that kind of lit the fuse was obviously the murder of George Floyd up in Minneapolis. Since then, we've seen protests all over the country. We've seen peaceful protests here in New Orleans, but we've seen protests all over the country. Yesterday, here in New Orleans and across the world, and it goes to show you the reach of the NFL, the reach of the brand of Drew Brees. A lot of people stepped out and had a lot of things to say about the comments that Drew Brees made about players that were kneeling for the national anthem and what may happen this year if players would ultimately kneel before games for the national anthem. Before I get your take, for the audience that has not seen the clip or heard the clip, we're going to run that for you now.
I will never agree with anybody disrespecting the flag of the United States of America or our country. Let me just tell you what I see or what I feel when the national anthem is played and when I look at the flag of the United States. I envision my two grandfathers who fought for this country during World War II, one in the Army and one in the Marine Corps, both risking their lives to protect our country and to try to make our country and this world a better place.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Those are the comments of Drew Brees yesterday. And I would just ask for your thoughts on what you heard from Drew Brees, and then we'll kind of get into, from a personal standpoint, what you thought about it, but also, again, the outcry that happened around the nation and around the world as well. But when you first heard these comments, your thoughts?
Well, the first thing for me is that they weren't unexpected. This is the exact same thing that he said when Colin Kaepernick first kneeled. So he's nothing but consistent. I mean, this is who Drew Brees has been his entire life.
Yes.
These are the things that he believes, and he has every right to his beliefs. Now, the issue for me is that Drew Brees is still getting the issue wrong. It's never been, and he's understood this because his teammates have told him this. Colin Kaepernick has said it. Everyone who has been involved in this has said it. The soldier that referred, Nate Solder, who talked to Colin Kaepernick and said, this is how you do it without being disrespectful. All those people have told Drew Brees this is not what we're talking about here. And yet he makes that the issue. And why people are upset is because when you make that the issue, you are taking the eyes off the ball, so to speak. The ball is police brutality, institutional racism, those things. It's not about what I feel. It's bigger than I. And there's a lot of I and reflection on Drew Brees and how he feels in the moment. Well, some moments are all bigger than us. They're not about how we individually feel about things. It's about empathy for someone else and seeing what they're saying. And when people are hurting and crying out like you're seeing, they just want you to know that you understand. It isn't even about agreement. I don't need Drew Brees to agree. But in the position that he's in the room that he's in, where 60% of his teammates are people of color, and you have to walk into there, I don't think it'll be a football problem, but his teammates are going to look at him differently. The fans of New Orleans will look at him differently. And I think more than anything, it's a disappointment to them, but again, it was not a surprise to me.
Right. The next day, today, Thursday, this morning, Drew Brees put out an apology. We'll put that up on the screen for you now. And again, the apology was all-inclusive on what he had to say. Your thoughts on the apology?
I understood why it was done.
Which is?
Which is there was a severe backlash.
Right.
The timing of it, because his teammates spoke out, I think was bigger than any part of this. When Malcolm Jenkins takes to social media and is in tears nearly, when Mike Thomas unfollows you and goes so far as to say that and calls you out directly, when even Aaron Rodgers is taking a subtle dig, based on the response, it becomes a media problem now. And it from the wording of it, I will take it at face value. Everybody has the right to apologize. But apology is based on action. And what I don't think you can have in less than 12 hours is a true understanding of why people are upset. So I think if Drew Brees is serious about what he's saying, then there's going to have to be action and follow-up. And that's not just for Drew Brees. I would say the same for Demario Davis. I would say the same for Sean Payton. Anybody who said something or has said nothing will be held to account, you and I included,
Yes,
as citizens of this country.
Absolutely.
We'll be held to account for our actions down the road. The one thing that bothered me about his statement is at no time did he use the word racism. And that's the same thing that bothered me earlier this week in Gail Benson's statement. 652 words, and not one of them is the word racism. And to me, if you can't say the issue, how are we supposed to confront it?
Right. You say actions. Let's talk actions first. Let's look at the body of work of Drew Brees, okay? Because that's part of this and something I spoke about on my radio show today. There is no doubt in my mind, and anybody that reads this, anybody again that is listening to what Drew Brees said yesterday, it was insensitive what he said. What he said 2 years ago and being consistent in the moment of what he said yesterday, that's Drew Brees, Okay, I compared him to Captain America this morning. Okay, I mean, again, he's had that Captain America persona since coming out of Purdue, being a professional quarterback. He's had that. But when you look at the body of work of Drew Brees and what Drew Brees has done, okay, for 15 years in New Orleans, helping all people, people of color, people, again, that were coming back from the largest man-made disaster in the history of this country, aka Hurricane Katrina, what he has given back in terms of, again, obviously, too much is given, much is expected. The money he's made, his fortune, giving part of that back to this community to lift up, just recently feeding people during the pandemic. What does that count in the big picture of who Drew Brees is?
I don't think Drew Brees is a bad person. And I don't think anyone should come away from this thinking that Drew Brees is a bad person. Certainly he is charitable. And I do believe he cares about New Orleans and its community. But I think Drew Brees has a blind spot when it comes to race. And he doesn't, when people like him, and I think his intentions surpass reality. You know,
In terms of what?
In understanding that just because you are not racist, or you view yourself as not racist, that is not the same as being anti-racism. You can be passively not racist and not do things that are discriminatory and not go out and say things that are negative and not practice anything in particular. But if you're not on the side of those people when they ask you for help, or if you don't even recognize that there's a problem, that keeps you from truly understanding the community that you live in. And we know New Orleans. The New Orleans city itself, 60% African American, and the majority of those African Americans live either at or below the poverty line. This is a working class city, and those people put their money together to be in the Superdome to cheer for their Saints, and they have done it year in and year out, and they love Drew Brees, and they love what he's done for the city. They do. That's why they're hurt, because they feel in this one way they're not seen. And you have to see all of me. It would be unfair of me. You got an award earlier this year from an Italian American Association.
Yes.
You're proud of being an Italian American.
Absolutely.
That's part of your heritage.
Of course.
You don't want people to not see that part of you.
Sure.
It is not the thing that defines you in total.
Absolutely.
But it is a part of who you are. And that's part of the story that when you tell your story, that's part of it.
Right.
And so we want Drew to see our color because there's a story there that's unique. And it's an American story that's different than the one that he's experienced.
Has he proven it with his actions, though? And I think that to me is the debate here. What he has done in his career, what he has done for, again, philanthropic giving back. Has he proven that he is a giving person, that he understands and recognizes that there's a disparity between, again, people of color and the white majority?
No, I don't think on that side, no. I think he understands poverty.
Okay.
I think he understands, I mean, the primary outlets for the Drew Brees Foundation have been children's hospitals, military families, faith-based organizations, schools, things like that.
Right.
All those things,
Right.
yes, he understands those things. Those are all things that do help African Americans. But this one issue, structural racism, both in his own office place, the National Football League, which certainly struggles with that and has been very public about those struggles,
Yes.
and in the city, to be a voice on those particular issues when you do have that influence. The one thing that Drew Brees has, same with Gail Benson, same with folks of that stature, is access to places that most African Americans will never get access to people they will never have access to. The seats of power in your city and in your state. If Drew Brees walks into the legislature and says something, it carries weight. If Drew Brees walks into a city council chamber and says something, it carries weight.
Yes.
So he could lend his weight to this. And to me, it's a human issue. It's not a political issue.
Right.
These are about the people who live in your city. And he claims New Orleans as his home.
Yes.
So this is his home, and there are fractures here too. And no, I do not think Drew Brees is a bad or uncharitable person. I truly believe that his heart is probably, is in the right place.
Yes.
But I just think there's a blind spot here, and it's an opportunity. Again, this is another opportunity. He's had one, and he missed it. This is another opportunity, and it's not going to be a week. It's not going to be a month. It's going to be over the course of his life, just like it is with all of us.
When you say he had one and he missed it, explain that to the audience.
In 2016, when his teammates wanted to do this, And he said what he said again. At the time, he talked about the flag itself and what it means to him. I think it's important to have a conversation because when he talks about him seeing his grandfathers, and you've seen this from a number of athletes, a number of African Americans have come out and talked about the experience of their grandfathers.
Right. Wendell Pierce, the New Orleans native.
My grandfather again has a brick right up there at the WW2 Museum.
Saw your dad's tweet last night.
And I know what my grandfather went through. I watched as the only job that he could get was working in a laundry in a hospital when he came home from World War II, and had to take care of 6 kids. It's just the world is different for other people, and we all have to step out of ourselves. We all have things that we've had to learn and unlearn as we've gotten older. And the first step is admitting, hey, maybe I just don't know enough about this. And if he can do that and say, I want to be more empathetic, then he doesn't have to be out there. I don't need Drew Brees to put his fist in the air. I don't need Drew Brees to wear a black jacket, and march down the streets. But I want him to use his voice to help his teammates and help them and their kids and their wives and all, feel more secure in their city.
See, that's interesting because I think now he is in a position where he has to be more proactive. That, again, the apology was one thing at this point, but words are words. And when you are in a situation where you're in a workspace where, again, the majority of the people you work with are people of color, and you are the leader of men, and I mentioned this on the radio show today, he was a leader of men up until yesterday. What has changed? Well, what changed was, again, the comments that were made, but is he any less leader of men? Now I feel like he now has to be proactive. And again, it may not be something he wants to do, okay, in terms of getting out there with protests, but I mean, again, I use the example of maybe being arm in arm with Malcolm Jenkins leading a protest.
I'd like to see him, talk to Louisiana Sheriff's Association. There's nobody more powerful outside of the governor's office than the sheriffs in the state.
That is absolutely true. Or
go
district
talk
attorneys.
To them. You know what I mean? Yeah,
Right.
Go talk to the DAs. Go talk to the prison commissioners. Ask, at the very least, get yourself informed and find out what's going on here. What are the statistics? Show me what sentencing look like. Show me what arrests look like. I want to learn.
Be no better what Demario Davis is doing.
Exactly.
Right.
And then go have those conversations. And because you are Drew Brees, and there's certain parts of Louisiana that are going to listen to you, that are not going to listen to Malcolm Jenkins, that are not going to listen to Demario Davis. But he can walk into those communities and say, look, this is a problem. And because it's a problem for them, it is also a problem for you. Because I think anytime any American is treated in a manner that's unbefitting of their citizenship, then we're all losing out.
Yeah. For you, David Grubb, how does he, the apology was one thing, how does he bring David Grubb back to the Drew Brees camp? How do you forgive what the comment was yesterday, or what, as you mentioned, what happened in 2016, feeling that maybe he doesn't have your back on this?
Now, I forgive anybody. If they apologize, I'll give them forgiveness. But like you said, I'm gonna hold Drew Brees accountable. And just like every other player and every other person, every owner, every league that has made a statement, every business that we watched who made these statements and who put up their black squares over the last few days, it's going to be the same for everybody. If Drew Brees wants people back, you just have to be authentic. It has to come across not as forced. It has to be real and find that lane.
Right. Do you feel? I feel like he's been authentic throughout his career here in New Orleans.
I think he is. Yeah, I think he is who he is. He's been consistent.
Right.
It's just that I think to this he has to be genuine. To be genuine and say, I failed at this. I failed and I'm going to get better. And like I said, just pick one or two things that you can do really well, Drew. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to prove something. I think that's what people get into the business of, is I need to prove this. The proof will be in how you live your life and what you do on a day-to-day. It doesn't necessarily have to be a show, but it needs to be public, like you said. It needs to be public, but don't do it for show. Don't do it to make people, to get people off your back. Do it because you want that outcome that you're out there to represent.
Were you surprised by the reaction of African Americans that play in the NFL or have played in the NFL, including his teammates? I mean, you had Lance Moore, you had Marcus Colston, you had other teammates that came out. You had current teammates that again came out and made comments And a lot of those comments for the first time ever were, I don't want to say they were not flattering, okay? Some were like, where you went, whoa, okay. Were you surprised?
The biggest one that surprised me was Marcus Colston. Because Marcus Colston is one of the most reserved athletes.
Absolutely.
And reserved in the sense that Marcus Colston was a warrior. That man took a beating on that field, but just quiet in word, very measured in what he said throughout his career. And he was Drew Brees' right arm, basically, for a decade. And for him to say how he said it in the stern words that he used. And then it was also profound for me for a lot of the young players that you saw from Louisiana, the Tyrann Matthews, the Kayla Chasons, who grew up admiring Drew Brees. And for them, it was almost an idol fallen moment.
I talked about it on the radio show today. And the one thing that was troubling for me in watching this kind of blow up into a volcano is there seemed to be a line drawn in the sand yesterday. Either you're all the way in or you're all the way out. How can that be? I mean, I can agree with everything and have your back, but there may be certain things that I may not agree with. Does that mean that, again, that I am not supportive and that I do not understand racism in our country, the discrepancy, again, between, the majority and people of color, what people have to do to deal with in terms of social injustice, the over-policing, police brutality. Again, I'm willing to stand shoulder to shoulder and be a quote-unquote ally, but do I have to be all the way in?
The only thing I think...
Can I disagree with, again, part of the platform and still be all the way in? Because there was a message out there yesterday that was either you're with us or you're against us.
No, I think in all the way in, I think people want to see, are you proactively, again, like I said, passive or active? Because, like I said, it's just not enough anymore for people to say, I'm not racist. Are you telling people, when you hear jokes in the office place, or when you look around and you see the leadership in your office is monochromatic, there aren't enough women represented, there aren't enough people of color represented. If you're not speaking up about those things, I think that's what people mean by all in or all out. Because even amongst people of color, we're going to have disagreements about.
You have people disagreements between the sex of people of color.
Right. So, we're going to have those disagreements. I think the outcome has to be the thing that we're all agreeing on, that racism in this country is still a prevalent issue. That's the first thing that we have to agree on.
Well, that's what this is about right now.
Right. And the second thing is, okay, what are you going to do to dismantle it? It's not about feelings. See, that's the thing. We're not talking about whether you like me or not. That's not the racism I care about. I care about the racism that's going to get me killed or keep me from an opportunity. Those are the things that and the government is supposed to protect me from those things. I should never die extrajudiciously. Those are the things that we want to see. Not that people think that it's about protecting criminals. No, we want to see criminals prosecuted just like anybody else. I just don't want to see them be prosecuted and sentenced in the street. That's what it is.
Let's talk about the team, and then I want to talk about the rest of the NFL. Today there was a Zoom call with the entire team. Supposedly that was set up days ago for the team to come together. I'm sure there was an airing of grievances. Brees has been the alpha male in that locker room. He's been the unquestioned leader of this franchise since 2006. Does he get the team back again, in your opinion? I will say I believe it will happen, okay? I believe it will happen. Does he get the team back? In your opinion?
So, yes, I do. I do, because these are professionals.
Right.
And they all have a mission. They see, again, there are only so many opportunities at winning.
But football is different where, again, you've got to be there in the trenches and you got to be, it is. You're fighting for
It is a trust business.
There is no doubt.
But we have seen far more egregious teammates survive, whether it was a Bill Romanowski, a Richie Incognito.
Right.
I don't put Drew Brees in the category of those individuals.
There's no way in the world.
So if you can survive working with those people, I think people are able to compartmentalize, but he will never be looked at the same in the locker room. From those 60 minutes on the field, they know he gives them the best opportunity to win. Now, if he doesn't go out and perform, then things change completely. That's anybody. But I think on the field, those 60 minutes, those are professionals. And they have a job to do. They want to win. They have contracts on the line too. They can't come out there and perform poorly. they are going to have to trust Drew enough, but he's got to.
Right.
It's going to be a long process.
But it is a brotherhood.
It is.
It is a brotherhood in that locker room. Again, counting on each man to have each man's back. So again, you think that it will be some work to get back to that?
And that won't happen until people are face to face.
Right. I agree.
It doesn't happen.
I do. I agree with that as well.
It doesn't happen.
I agree. But also, again, I have to come back to there's a track record here. Okay, there is a history with this man of again being a leader, of loving people and giving, and not just leading again a football team, but leading a community. And I don't think that is. Should be forgotten.
No, you don't throw it away.
It doesn't just because of one city. We live in a business where if we make a mistake with a statement or a word, we can lose our jobs and be banished forever.
Yes, and before you get off the air,
right?
Okay,
we work in a business like that. Okay, so we understand that words are very, very strong. They have meaning.
Absolutely.
Okay, and you have to be very measured in what you say. Okay,
but I think it's like in our own families. I've been angry with family members, and you go away and you say, I can't talk to you right now. And it could be your cousins, brothers, you take some distance from each other, whatever it is, and there are deep feelings about those things. And a lot of times it takes that distance, and then you come back together and you figure it out. Now, with all your siblings, you don't have the same relationship. Some you're closer with, and some you're not as close with, but your family. And I think that's what will happen. I think that's what will be Sean Payton's message, is that, look, we still have a goal to complete. And every year there's something in that locker room that we don't know about. Arguments, conversations, fights within. And this will be one that's going to be tough for them to get over. But ultimately, like I said, this is not the worst thing I've ever seen on a team. I just think this is the most personal thing that's been on a team in a while.
Would the word disappointment be a word?
Yes. But I mean, let's go back to an incident. Remember Kerry Collins when he was with the Carolina Panthers?
Yes.
And it came out that he had used a racial slur.
Yes.
Kerry Collins survived that. And 10 years later, he's playing the Super Bowl with the Giants.
Yes.
So I think, these things, now this time is different. The accountability will be different.
Absolutely.
The atmosphere is completely different. But ultimately, I think professionals will be professionals.
Talk about the opponents, because I think that's going to be the interesting thing here. It's one thing for the 53, 56, 60 people that are in that locker room. It's another thing for opponents that once looked up to Breeze. How does that work now with men of color that play in the NFL that are his opponents now?
I think it's the same thing. You can't allow any type of negative emotions when you're trying to do your job. If something takes you off your focus and you're angry on the field, you're going to make mistakes. So if you want to be angry with Drew Brees, be angry with Drew Brees between Monday and Saturday. But if you're going to come on the field, I think every player should be focused on the task at hand. You can't punish Drew Brees physically for what he said. To me, that's stupid.
Or what he didn't say.
Or what
right?
he didn't say.
It's not what he said as much as what he didn't say, right?
That doesn't serve a purpose, and you're not going to send the message that you intend to send. So to me, focus on your job. If you want to say something to him, you have every right to say it to him, but say it to his face and say it to him off the field.
Right. Because I want to make it clear, from my standpoint, it's not what he said so much, because he said what he believes, and he believes it obviously in his heart because he said it over and over again. It's what he did not say.
Right.
It's not the continuation of the comment. Right. Okay, as I said on the radio show today, instead of going in talking about your grandfathers, bring it back to where we are today in terms of institutional racism. That should have been the focus. I don't agree with the practice, but I understand what's going on.
Because no one will ever ask him to do something he doesn't want to do.
Talk about the fans, okay? Because again, look, you were very, very strong and out front on social media with your thoughts, and again stood up for again what would you believe in. Fans, it was amazing last night to see. I mean, there was a protest in New Orleans last night. The city, and this went nationwide, worldwide, where there was profanity. F. Drew Brees. Yeah. Okay? Who would have thought you'd ever hear that in this town, ever? I surely didn't. But the fans that are in that dome, the fans that have been his fans, the fans of the New Orleans Saints, especially fans of people of color, what do you think happens there?
I think honestly, there's been a perception for some time that the Saints organization has not always been sensitive to people of color. So I think that's an organizational issue too. And they're going to have to work for those fans. They're going to have to make sure that they aren't just paying lip service to them. It's going, like I said, the eyes are going to be very, very pointed in the Saints' direction. Both Drew Brees and the organization, Gail Benson on down, people are going to watch their hiring practices. People are going to watch, how they treat this situation. People are going to see if they back up these things with the coalition that they formed. Everything is going to be measured, and the Saints are just going to have to make sure that they're not just throwing money at issues, because that doesn't solve it. These are not money issues. More than anything, this is, what are you using your power to do? And I think that's where, if fans focus on that, you don't have to stop loving your team. You don't. I don't think there's any reason to boycott the Saints. But I do think holding the Saints accountable and saying, if you are a stakeholder,
talking about the organization,
more than anything else, because that's what will filter down. It starts at the top. You hold that organization accountable and say, you receive taxpayer dollars. You're in a taxpayer building, rent free. You say you are a stakeholder and a pillar of this community. Your owner is the richest person in the state. You have a level of social accountability to all of your fans, to make sure that they are doing better. Because isn't that what leadership ultimately is?
Leadership.
Raising people up.
Right. You always, again, you raise all, when you're in that boat, you want to raise all boats. Anything that I have not asked you today that you would like to communicate to the audience before we go to break?
I think the one thing that I would say, and that I've tried to be consistent in saying, is we have to stop viewing this as an other problem. It is not about those people.
You're talking about racism.
Yes.
Institutionalized
racism.
Social injustice, over-policing, police brutality.
The entire spectrum. It is not an other problem. It is not, when I hear people talk about if I've offended the black community, that's not a singular place. There's, unfortunately in this country, a lot of times black folks have been pinned in single places within cities. But we are black Americans. We are not a subset of America in that regard. And ultimately, that's what this has always been about. For 401 years now, ultimately, that's all it's been about. And black Americans have died under the American flag since before there was a United States of America. You go back to the French and Indian War. Black Americans died. The first person who died for this country in the American Revolution was a black American. We've been patriotic. We've asked. And I think people are just at the point now where they don't want to ask for things that they should have as a citizen, as their birthright as an American citizen. And I just want people in New Orleans and anywhere else who's listening to this to be empathetic and talk to the people that you know, both white and black, and understand what one side is going through and what it really means to be a friend and help.
He's David Grubb, Sports 1280. He's on 10 to noon right before me. Of course, you can find his writing at CrescentCitySports.com. And of course, we're putting up the social media pages so you can follow him on social media as well. We will take a break. We'll hear from our underwriters. We come back. We're getting deep into sports. The NBA is back and the Pelicans are involved. We'll break it down for you next here on Inside New Orleans Sports. Stick around.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, David Grubb of CrescentCitySports.com and Sports 1280. Hard in the Paint is the name of the show. All right, let's get back to some sports here. We'll try to circle back to some Saints talk with the additions. We've retread that through this show for the last few weeks with no sports to talk about, but the NBA is back, and to me that's a great thing. Board of Governors voted today 29-1, with Portland being the only dissenting vote to be able to restart the season in Orlando, the bubble city. Now, Portland, from what I understand, did not vote against it because they were against coming back. They just did not like the format in which the NBA was coming back. 13 Western Conference teams, 9 Eastern Conference teams will play 8 regular season games and a possible play-in tournament for the 8th seed in the playoffs over at the Wide World of Sports at Walt Disney. The top 6 teams in the Eastern Western Conference will be joined by, again, 6 of the 8 place teams, teams are within 6 games of the 8th place team, and that is New Orleans, Portland, San Antonio, Sacramento, and Washington. Total. The play-in tournament will include the number 8 and 9 teams. If the 9th seed finishes the regular season within 4 games of the 8th seed, in that case, the 9th seed would need to beat the 8th seed twice to earn a playoff berth. The 8th seed would need to win 1 of those potential games. And of course, this will start with a small training camp, starting July 9th to the 11th in Orlando. And then this will start July 31st with the finals ending by October 12th. We'll get into some of the other things that's going on with the draft and the lottery. But first of all, your thoughts on the format that's being used to be able to bring the NBA back.
Well, first and foremost, we put everything with the caveat that we hope everybody is safe, and
no doubt
we'll give it that and deal with that. But assuming that's the case, I think this was necessary for the NBA. They weren't going to appease everybody.
True.
That wasn't possible. So there were only 2 options. Either take the top 16 and just say that's it, or you create this opportunity because of this logjam. The Western Conference is really what drove this, because they knew they weren't going to get the votes from those teams. If you lose those owners who say, you didn't give us a shot when we had the most favorable, and it's not just the Pelicans. Like I said, there's 3 teams tied with the Pelicans. 2 teams tied with the Pelicans. So, yeah, I think the NBA needed to get as many owners on board as possible, and they needed to explain how this was going to be better revenue-wise for everyone else. And certainly the inclusion of Zion Williamson, Damian Lillard, a guy who made it to the Western Conference Finals last year. They needed those stars. You could not eliminate them when you're trying to have the highest ratings you can get possible, and when you're going to be playing multiple games per day.
Yes.
So you need multiple draws throughout the day, and certainly Zion Williamson is a draw.
Absolutely. And it was, again, I think, for New Orleans, the Zion factor was huge in getting him here. When you look at the way this thing is going to work, again, we'll see now the NBA moving the start of the regular season to probably to Christmas.
Yes.
Which I think, honestly, and I've talked about in this program, is a good thing for the NBA. It's a great thing for the New Orleans Pelicans, moving the season up to December and not having to be able to go against high school, college, or professional football here in South Louisiana. I think that helps the leagues, the cities, especially those franchises that are in the South, but those are in football country. But I think it especially helps the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah, I think it's become the unofficial start of the season anyway. People
Agreed.
look at Christmas as the start. So if you're going to start the season, mid to late December just has become the time when people start to pay attention to the NBA, because it is the wind down of the regular season with the NFL, and college football has ended post-Thanksgiving except for the bowls. So yeah, I think ultimately we could see that change into a long-term decision for the NBA. The thing that I struggle with is, for a team like the Pelicans, with these young players who all have varying injury histories, if they were to make a lengthy run,
Right.
and this ends in October, to have to turn around and get their bodies back ready for a season that starts in December, and to integrate new rookies into the roster, or free agents,
Yes.
however that comes, it's going to be really difficult. At least every team will be going through that.
Yes.
But at the same time, with the young team, with the situation that the Pelicans in, I would love for them to have more time together in an off season to really get to the point where they're not dealing with injury, they're not dealing with recuperation, they're just focused on getting better.
This is going to be a different NBA. You're going to have teams now that are going to be very, very healthy, as opposed to when things shut down in March, leading into April, looking at that stretch run, especially for the Pelicans, looking at the 18 games left, most of those against teams that they were competing for the 8th seed, where they were healthy, those other teams were not. Most, if not all, teams will be healthy. The balance of power can shift here. I mean, again, if Kevin Durant comes back, if Kyrie Irving's able to come back, and again, I don't know if Irving's going to be able to come back, but if those, all of a sudden now Brooklyn is a much formidable opponent coming out of the East. With teams that, again, are healthy, how many players could have worked out if you're able to continue to work out? There are a lot of factors in this, but I don't think this is a bad thing for the Pelicans in any stretch. I think having the ability to play in, maybe having a possibility of getting in and being healthy, because they'll be healthy going into this, and having a chance to get a taste of the playoffs, no matter what the playoffs look like, I think is only a plus for this young franchise.
The one thing we did not learn about this team this year was what it was going to be like during a stretch run.
Sure.
That was the only thing we hadn't seen. Because over that 30-game period, once essentially the starting lineup was together, and remember, Zion still only played 19 games.
Right, and still was on a minutes restriction in a lot of cases.
And wasn't in a complete basketball shape. But you had the number one starting lineup in the NBA for the last 30 games of the regular season up until the season ended. So yeah, that's the only thing we didn't know, is if this team mentally was ready to take that step. Because what they had suffered the most was being bad in close games.
Yes.
This was going to be an opportunity to play against those teams in your direct path to the postseason.
Yes.
And we were going to able to see if we were going to find out. That path is harder now. Statistically, they had a 60% chance of making the playoffs where they were when the season paused.
Right.
Now that's down to about 15%. It's an 80% chance for Memphis to hold on to that 8th spot, because everything's been set up for them now. The schedule is completely different.
Right. It's not the same schedule we were looking at with 18 games left. They'll be playing against the teams that they're competing for now for that spot. But it's a different deal because, again, even now Memphis, who was injured, is healthy as well. And then you're looking at the cohesion of the team that has not been together. It's been reported Nico Melli has been in his apartment for 3 months. Has not even touched a basketball. Okay, some guys have had a chance to continue to train, some haven't. But we know, again, basketball is more than just training and getting physically ready to play the game. There's some cohesion within the players. They were getting there. They were getting that. How much of that do you lose? How hard is that to be able to ramp that up for, maybe not for a veteran team, but for a young team?
I think it's going to be, it's going to be sloppy the first couple of games back. It's going to look like preseason basketball because minutes are going to be staggered. Guys are not going to be able to have the same win to go and play 36 minutes from game one, because people are going to say, well, why aren't they in shape? They're in shape. But we all know
but you're not in
there's
NBA
a difference
shape.
between treadmill and running a marathon. It's a big difference. And the same with the basketball game. They are not in basketball shape right now. And it's going to take some time. Even that little brief training camp it's not a game situation. So yeah, getting back into that groove. And remember too, some guys have been focused so much more on, I'm lifting, I have to lift, I don't have any room to run, I can't go anywhere. So all of those things, getting their flexibility back, avoiding the simple injuries that come from lack of use, ankles, knees, hamstrings, groin pulls, those are things you see from inactivity. So that monitoring that is going to be very important in the early going. And at the same time, you can't lose ground, because essentially the Pelicans have to go 6-2 in those 8 games to give themselves a shot.
That's right. And again, when you look at this, and you talk about those nagging injuries, that's one of the things you worry about going forward. But the good thing is, these are young players. And it's not like you're looking at maybe an older team where you're worried about, oh man, this team's going to break down. These are young guys. Look, when we were running around 19 and 20, okay, we were able to recover really quickly. I worry more about the cohesion coming back together, playing together. Again, Lonzo Ball and Zion, where they had a connection going.
They do.
Can you reconnect that connection now between these players? But again, the good thing is, again, as I've mentioned a couple times, they're healthy, and that gives them a chance. And again, there's nothing wrong with this. Now, again, they will be all the teams will be domiciled at the Wide World of Sports. They will be able to play golf. They will be able to go out to dinner. It is unclear as of this moment whether the families will travel with them. That was one of the specifications for this. Again, the players did not want to be away from their families in the middle of a quote-unquote pandemic. Okay, and now again, with again what we're dealing with the protests and everything else, for 3 months. So again, originally it was said they go to the bubble city. We don't know if they're able to go to the bubble city. Again, what is that situation? Now, we do know the players are going to be tested on individually, and I'm guessing they're going to be tested on a daily basis.
We don't know yet.
But we have no idea. Again, the deal is testing kits. How many can you get? All that, again, has to be worked out. They just did say they're going to quarantine players if they ultimately are positive. We've seen that in some of the leagues around the world now, where they're just quarantining the positive person and allowing others to be able to continue to be able to play. If someone gets sick or positive, how much does that hurt a team in terms of, again, the balance of power? Let's say LeBron James is positive, and he's got to be able to be quarantined. That takes a lot off the Los Angeles Lakers. So you're looking at that. Outside of injury, you're also looking at the possibility of individuals that test positive that may not be able to play as well.
And then you also have to make sure that the testing processes are upfront.
Right.
Because you don't want teams encouraging, figuring out
Right.
ways that, oh, hey, we're at this point in the season, we can get by if we don't. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there's only, if you get to the finals and we only have a week left, if someone tests positive,
Right.
and they don't want to shut it down.
Right. It's got to be independent.
It's got to be public.
Right.
They're going to have to be very transparent
Right.
about these processes, and they're going to have to identify immediately when players test positive, because if people feel like they've been scammed, if they feel like they haven't been told the truth about how dangerous or lack of danger there is, and it's important both ways.
Right.
Then I think that'll be a misstep for the NBA. But they've been very good about transparency
Right.
so far.
The interesting thing is going to be for those of us that have watched the game our whole lives, that have played the game our whole lives, to hear sneakers once again.
Yes.
I mean, when is the last time when is the last time you've been at a professional basketball game and heard sneakers on the court? You don't hear it. I don't care if you're courtside, you do not hear it. Okay. The other challenge, obviously, for the networks is, again, to be able to play these games with the sound, and of course, again, with what we normally, as we've been courtside, hear what goes on. But again, that is going to be very clear to the audience. It'll be an experience that most people have never seen when it comes to professional sports.
It's certainly an opportunity. I would imagine that you're going
Right.
to get more intimate sound from the floor.
Right.
I saw baseball today has told its announcers that they will have to watch from their home stadiums and not be allowed to go to wherever their bubble is. So I would imagine it's going to be the same for people like us, is that we'll have to listen to Pelicans broadcast, but
Right.
Antonio Daniels,
Yes.
they'll be here doing it from
Right.
there. But yeah, it's going to be so surreal. But at the same time, when we did play basketball when we were young, it's 10 guys in a gym.
Didn't matter.
It was 10 guys in a gym, and that's what this will be.
Most people, you get fired up. There's no doubt. The crowd fires you up. It can lift a team, but most guys are on that level. You're focused on the game.
Once you're competing,
Inside the game, it's the
crowd
game.
means nothing, because
Right.
you hear it from great
Yes.
players all the time.
Right.
When I'm at my peak, it's silent around
Right.
me anyway.
Exactly. Let's grab a couple calls here. Let's go to Jeff on the West Bank. Jeff, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Jeff.
Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'd like to know what do you think is the reason the NBA refused to push the time limit back more to like December, Christmas or New Year's?
Talking about the regular season, or you're talking about the resumption?
The regular season.
Okay, Jeff, thank you for the phone call. I don't know what the hesitation is more than just, again, trying to fit 82 games in a season, right?
Yeah, they have.
And not to do, remember, they expanded it, right? It was October the 30th, it was around Halloween we were there.
Right.
But then now it was October the 15th because they didn't want to do the back-to-backs.
Right.
Okay, they would, again, players were complaining about the back-to-backs. And that was part of it. That's why they tried to extend the season some in terms of the calendar. I just think it makes good sense to start in December and not to have to go head-to-head against college football and pro football. But
And this, I think that it's a one-year experiment because the CBA expires at the end of the 2020-21 season. So this is an adaptation. People asked for a cap to this season. So the NBA is doing its best that it can, and I think that they took the proper precautions in waiting to resume the season and not wanting to cancel it. They never made definitive statements. Now they feel they're in a position to go forward. If you're going to start next season, you can't push it back any further into January, February, because again, it starts messing up your calendar in perpetuity.
Right.
So ultimately, they're trying to get 2 seasons in a reasonable amount of time and prepare for the next.
The interesting thing to me is, again, the draft lottery will be on August the 25th. The NBA draft will be on October the 15th. October the 15th is normally when college basketball opens up their camps in a lot of cases, right? It's when you get the Midnight Madness, the whole 9 yards there. With, again, the season starting somewhere around between December the 1st and the regular season around the 25th. All these young men that would like to be able to play in the NBA that are now they're going to have 10 days after the combine in order to be able to declare and go into the draft or to not go into the draft. It'll be interesting to see again how this is going to play out. How many go, how many stay because of the short time limit and go back for their senior years or again, sophomore, junior years, go back to college. What do you think is going to happen there?
The limbo is really on the NCAA now, because if the NCAA decides to push its college basketball season back to January, those kids are caught in a really bad spot.
Right.
Because
how do you prepare?
Because either you were hoping I'm not going to the NBA, I'm going to Europe or wherever else overseas. Now all of those things could be thrown into jeopardy. You would hope then that the NBA would give the decision that, hey, because of this, you can come back and join your school whenever, as long as you have not taken money or of some sort.
I like the Pelicans' chances here, not to win an NBA championship, but to get into the playoffs. And we see what happens. There's no way they're going to beat the Los Angeles Lakers in a series unless, again, everybody is COVID-19 positive, and you're playing a show of the team, especially with Anthony Davis, LeBron James. But I think this is a win-win for the Pelican organization. I think this is a good thing. What do you think the Pelicans' chances are here?
I think they got as good a shot as anybody. Look, you get 2 games against Sacramento. You get 2 games against Memphis. You get a game against San Antonio. You've also got Orlando. And I mean, the schedule is set up for them. And again, to go 6-2, the record that they have against those teams, they've been good against all those teams. I think they have 1 loss against that entire group. So yeah, they've got a shot. And like you said, they're healthy. They're coming back. They were on a surge when they did leave.
Yes.
I think it comes down to them in Memphis.
Yeah, I would agree. Favorite now going into this. We don't know who's healthy yet.
Right.
Okay, but let's say that most teams come back healthy, even guys that maybe didn't play the season. I'm talking, i.e. Kevin Durant. Does the balance of power shift here?
I think you still have to say Milwaukee and the Lakers are the favorites.
Okay.
The way things line up. But again, you're right. We've seen situations like this when people have had layoffs or you have these kind of strange seasons, whether it was in the NFL when they had the strike in '83, or when we saw in the NBA when they had the strike in '99, and the Knicks beat the Hawks in the first round and the Spurs end up in the finals. I wouldn't be surprised. Well, even in 1981, remember New Jersey Nets come out and beat the defending champion Sixers. They just went 4-4-4 the year before and beat them in the first round. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is a first round upset, and if it is somebody. Would you bet against the Pelicans to be a first round?
Not the way they were playing, and not in circumstances that are different for all the teams that are involved.
And see, and another big part of it is when we see the schedule, how close are those games?
Right.
How many days apart do you get them? Because you're going to have a lot of back-to-backs.
Well,
and you're going to have, I played it, it's going to be like baseball.
Yeah.
I played in the daytime on this day, nighttime at this day, daytime the next day. And we're going to, that may affect the older teams more than we thought.
I would agree with that. That helps a younger team like the Pelicans. Let's grab another call. Malcolm is in Slidell. Malcolm, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Malcolm.
Hey, thanks for having me. My question is, do you think it'll be more beneficial to just cancel this season and just start fresh next season, or try to have a playoff? Because this playoff schedule they got going on, I really don't understand it. It seems legit, but I'd rather just see them start fresh from a brand new season. So I was wondering what y'all take on
that. Okay, a lot of it has to do with revenue.
Yes, that's
okay. It's revenue. They have to play. What is it? 70% of the games on regional television in order for the regional television contract to kick in, and they have to play these games to get a percentage of the games in, so that the salary cap doesn't bottom out, and you go into next year with again having to cut players or having to go into the luxury tax.
Right, and for me, a long time I was in support of ending the season.
Right. Have you moved off of that?
I have, in the sense that I'm assuming that the health care protocols will be in place.
Right. And you're talking about the testing for COVID-19.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. As long as if the players are in agreement with the system that they come up with, and that's ultimately what it's going to come down to. Is the union good with the testing protocols? Then finish the season. Right. Because that's what the players want to do. And like you said, ultimately it is important for the players to finish the season. The owners are making less money. I never say they're losing money. No. Their money was made already. But the players need this for the cap purposes.
And they need that for next year and then the year after that. You don't want to go backwards on the cap as it is. You can do that in terms of, again, the lost revenue. Remember, they're coming off lost revenue because of what happened in China as well. And now you're having this COVID-19 situation where a lot of people believe that cap was going to go up every single year, and again, capologists are counting on that, and we may not see that now. We may see a leveling off of the cap
for
now,
a year or two,
right? No doubt, until this thing can kind of catch back up. But I think I don't think it was a player thing. I don't think it was we need to crown a champion. I think it was a money thing.
I mean, they want to play.
Right.
We know that.
The players want to get a championship.
But the money, absolutely. Right. The union as a whole is going to say, like you said, we cannot take a step backwards financially. And this is for the rank and file guy. Remember, the average NBA player is not making $40 million a year. Right. They're a lot closer to like a Jaleel Okafor making $1.2 million a year, which to us, is a ton of money.
NBA money, that's
nothing. And so these guys have to make sure that the league doesn't shrink, because if you are a $2 million guy and all I've got is $1 million left, their guys are going to lose jobs, and that's what nobody wants to be priced out.
And look, again, these guys have a lifestyle right now, and that lifestyle is depending on that salary that they get.
And it's a short time to make it.
And a lot of people live above their means, especially with that short window. So again, to me, it was more about money than crowning a champion, and it'll be interesting to see again how this kind of plays out. But I know I'm happy the NBA is coming back. I
love basketball.
Right, so do I. And look, again, sports across the board. If they have to start without fans, we do that. And then we'll find out. Look, we're finding out, again, as I've said, life is now where we live 30 days at a time in a COVID-19 world. And we'll figure out what's going on as we go forward.
Let's just do the smart thing.
Right.
And, take our time with it. You dip your toe in the water. You have just the players, and we will adjust. And frankly, if you're the leagues, it's great to not have fans in the building, because you save a lot of money on what you're paying out on game day expenses, and your TV ratings are going to be astronomical.
Right, there's no doubt. It is made for TV. Now, I do feel for the people, again, or the support staff that work in those stadiums, work in those arenas.
And we hope they get taken care of.
And we hope that, again, like Zion did, much like others did, that they'll continue to take care of them. Dave, I got a few seconds left. Tell the folks about the radio show. Tell them how they can catch you on radio, and, of course, how they can find you with your writings as well.
Of course, Hard to Paint. Weekdays, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon on Sports 1280. You can also get it on the iHeartRadio app. You can get it if you have a TV, you can get it on Roku. You can download it there. And also you can check me out, CrestCity.sports.com and thebirdrights.com, and also on the Bird Calls podcast. I've just been doing a lot of stuff. Follow me on social media at DM Grubb, and you can keep tabs on all that.
Dave, thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV at 10 p.m. You can also catch us on Pelican Sports Television. That is statewide. That is 9 o'clock on Pelican Sports Television every single week. You can catch me on the radio right after this gentleman. That's Torch 1280, 101.1 FM HD2, and of course the iHeartRadio app, ericasher.com. That is noon to 2 weekdays. Listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. All the previous episodes of this program can also be seen at ericasher.com, our social media platforms, as well as the WLAE-TV YouTube page as well. Again, special thanks to our incredible underwriters who make this show possible. Also, again, to David Grubb for his contribution tonight, our great audience, and also thanks to our friends here at WLAE-TV. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Naila Jones, Alex Chacon, Tommy Fairley, and my director extraordinaire, the best in the business, William Hill. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Eric Asher. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.